Guess who's back to talking about manga since it's been like a month since I last did it. I ain't got a goddamn thing to say for this intro, so let's just get started. The first manga is one I'm talking about for like the second time. Last time I talked about it was way back in the day in this video where I had to breeze by everything. That manga being Kainushi Jujin Tupetto Joshi Kosei, or The Beast Pet High School Girl, which is technically an isekai manga, since it follows a high schooler named Aki who ends up on a world of furries where humans are essentially just animals. I know I am far from the first to mention how this plot can read almost like a horror novel. The manga even kind of leans into this at times, with it being made clear that humans are kind of like having pet chickens because they aren't just pets to have around the house. They're primarily food. And like a common food too. Like when Zenovi, oh that's the owner's name by the way, Zenovi. Like when Zenovi brings her to first meet his mother doesn't think the human's a pet. Rather, she thinks her son finally grew up and brought over meat for dinner. I asked this last time, but I still want answers for it. For those of you who own like chickens as pet and stuff, have you ever eaten like chicken in front of it? This has nothing to do with anything, but I am curious. Despite the horrific nature of its plot, the manga gives itself a nice light tone thanks to it basically just being one of those pet mangas, you know? Like Breakfast with My Two-Tailed Cat or The Masterful Cat is Depressed Again Today, if you know what I'm talking about. Where a big focus of the story is literally just the owner taking care of their pet. A big thing is Zenovi utterly doting upon Aki, who he ends up naming Lila. There are funny moments like him trying to get her to dress up, only for his friend to suggest a maid outfit. But there's also jealousy when someone else gets his pet human's attention, like when Lila sits in someone else's lap. It really helps keep this manga from feeling too much like a horror when 90% of what we get is simple comedy. Though the manga does take advantage of its setting to create some unique jokes and humor. Like, Lila is a whole-ass high school girl, she's not stupid, and she also comes from a world with its own culture and ideas. So she reacts just like you'd expect when Zenovi tries to take a bath with his new pet. And remember, Zenovi is a wolf beast man who has some dog-like tendencies, like sniffing Lila's stuff, although other characters do acknowledge that he is a fucking weirdo. My favorite example is about the fact that he does have fur. Of course, Zenovi is hot in the summer and Lila is not, but he realizes that if he turns up the AC, maybe she'll hug him to stay warm. And then there's the jokes that don't really have anything to do with him being an animal, like accidentally taking a yam to work instead of an umbrella. Like, genuinely, I don't know why this panel fucking one-shot me. I was laughing way harder than I should have. But the manga does have larger conflicts, like Zenovi's brother, who supposedly hates humans, but not really. He just kind of let everyone assume that, and he's already in too deep to really correct them. But then there's more serious conflicts, like when someone kidnaps Lila to get back at Zenovi. The manga also does have a larger ongoing plot thread of Aki or Lila, or however I'm going to say her name. I might be saying Lila, I might be saying Lila, I'm not keeping track, wanting to somehow get back to her own world. The manga builds upon this slowly, with Lila putting together their language, and eventually Lila even uses Zenovi's name. It's a strange manga to see a human being treated as a pet, but I do feel like it does take advantage of that to be something that's unique and memorable. Frankly, it's so unique that it's hard to describe. I know I've said it before, but imagine one of those typical pet mangas. But replace the owner with a furry and the pet with a human. It's weird as hell, but it's not a bad read. The only real issue I have with this manga is that it's seemingly going to remain unfinished. It's been a while, like literal years without updates, but what we have isn't bad either. The next manga I'd like to talk about is actually the manga that got me to make this video. It's one of those mangas I marked down for later and would occasionally see updates for but never got around to reading. It was randomly this Monday, I think, that I decided to actually read through the entire thing, and for no real reason. It's called White Tiger and Black Tiger, and it's a 4-koma, meaning 4-panel manga. This manga is all about a little white tiger who's looking for the cool and inspiring black tiger, only to find out that black tiger is a black tiger prawn. Not that he lets it stop them from being bestest buddies. The main gimmick of the story is a simple setup where the tigers are doing something, black gets cooked before the resolution at the hospital where white tiger says, "Thank goodness you only lightly fried, battered, etc., etc." You'd be surprised with how much mileage the manga gets from the simple format. Part of it is because the setup can change by having the characters do different things to arrive at that endpoint. Sometimes White Tiger may end up eating too much spicy food and frying his buddy. Other times, the entire joke is delivered through text. Other times, the nature of the joke changes, like having White Tiger and Black Tiger drop their phones on their faces, #relatable, and the ending line changes accordingly. Although, this setup, which makes up the early chapters, gets changed up pretty quickly, with a lot of the jokes having nothing to do with it. One of my favorite examples of this is this one right here, and not even necessarily because of the joke, but because of the way I can see time change. Back in the day, it was a Game Boy. Back in my day, it was a Nintendo DS. But right now, it's a Switch. The best help to this manga is the diversity of its supporting cast. We have the Black Cat bartender with a worse sense of direction than Zoro. And of course, the Rabbit Doctor and the Dog Cop. They're actually my favorite characters in the manga, more so than even the main characters. For the most part, they're pretty normal people, with the rabbit being extra doting upon the tigers because they're so cute. But they absolutely can't stand each other to the point that they are always fighting. And in the Dog Cop's defense, she is the one to start it most of the time. This could be her stealing his food or refusing to let him pay for things if she's just not outright flaunting her wealth. One of the big reoccurring jokes is about the rabbit following the tigers around so she can do her whole "you were only lightly burned" thing, with the Dog Cop responding to the creepy stalker weirdo appropriately. It's just this hilarious gimmick when both the Rabbit Doctor and the Dog Cop are perfectly fine on their own and they're both good people, but they just can't fucking stand each other. Sometimes the manga also substantiates itself by not having a joke at all and just letting itself be cute for the sake of it, or maybe poking fun at itself. The manga is episodic with no big connecting thread through it, which makes it a nice, easy read. And barring some exceptions that I'm pretty sure are just formatting, everything is contained to one page and is done in 4 panels. And given how there are only like 280 chapters as of recording this, it all adds up to like 1 or maybe 2 whole manga volumes. This manga won't take you more than like a day or if not an afternoon to read. We're roughly halfway-ish through the video, so remember to like and subscribe and check out my Ko-fi and Patreon for cool benefits like telling me what games to stream or manga to cover. The third manga on this list wasn't a manga I had my eye on, rather it's one I only came across as I was making this video, and it utterly blew me away with its sheer quality. Its name is Sealand, and it takes place in a world of felines and canines, but more importantly, it takes place in a world where there's only one continent. The felines and the canines fought bitterly for it, but it was the dogs that won in the end, exiling the cats to the outer islands. A resourceless hell where everyone has to struggle to survive, but that's where Jean the dog was born, and his mother and the small cat Azul live. It's a meager existence that only gets worse when they're attacked by 2 large cats, and Jean barely escapes with his life. It's only thanks to the black lion Zahab that he doesn't die, and it's only thanks to Zahab that Jean learns the only way to make the world a better place. Jean has one of the gears, and when you gather all 3, you can reveal the the continent of Sealand, giving the cats a place to live, the world a second bounty of resources, and the manga its name. It's a simple concept for a story, to be honest, collect the MacGuffins across the ocean and fix the world and all that, but it's the deeper details of the world that really make it something I fell in love with. To begin, despite there being dogs and cats, there are further tribes and breeds within the 2 groups, each given their own name but paralleling real animals. Like lions, foxes, wolves, direwolves, and different dog breeds, but they all fall into this world that is desperate for resources. Like the dogs that shed a lot and grow lots of fur are valued producers, and the kingdom on the only continent has its own caste system. It's made clear that the nobility at the top don't care for sacrificing hundreds of the lower ones to serve their enigmatic purposes. The manga also makes good use of the characters being animals, making that a key part of the story. Stuff like a dog's smell being important alongside a cat's ability to climb. And the manga's art just blows me away. Look at this. Sometimes it's nice and cartoony before shifting to this incredibly realistic style to suit the tone of the moment. The artist has skill in spades, from detailed backgrounds to quick and frenetic action. The expressions are one of the things I notice the most for the way they accentuate the tension. I know I'm harping a lot about the art, but the art in this series is genuinely some of the best I've ever seen. There's moments where you can tell the author studied animals instead of drawing in that usual furry style, and it's just gorgeous. This is definitely a manga I'm going to make a full video about in like a year or two because this manga is hella new. So far, only 3 full chapters are out. They're long chapters, but they're also released every other Sunday. But what's also super duper cool is that this manga does have an official translation you can easily read online. It's published by Kodansha and K-Manga, so if you already read Gachiakuta or Shangri-La Frontier or The Masterful Cat is Depressed Again Today, you should definitely give this one a read. Hell, I'm including a link to this manga in the description because it's genuinely a great story. It's also worth noting that the manga's chapters are in parts, so despite there being 4 chapters out right now, there's more like 7 chapters that are ready to read. Actually, if this video gets out on time, there's probably a new chapter out right now. Moving on to the 4th manga we have, I want to ask if any of you have heard of the anime movie The Concierge. I planned to cover the movie a while back, and it is only thanks to my smooth brain remembering things that I decided to cover this manga right now. This manga follows the new employee, Akino, at the Hokkyoku department store. She's adjusting to her job and its weird circumstances, namely that all its customers are animals, and then there's the extra special VIAs, very important animals that are extinct. How does an extinct animal visit a department store? I don't know. How do animals talk and wear clothes? Don't ask questions. The manga is mostly episodic. While it does have a larger singular narrative, it's all about Akino getting experience rather than some grand thing, with most of the actual plots being relegated to singular chapters. Each chapter follows Akino encountering a different animal with a unique situation as she tries to help them buy the right thing. One chapter, she's helping a ferret who's shopping with a potential client, or maybe she's helping a Japanese wolf figure out how to propose. My favorite chapter of the entire manga has to be chapter 5, the final chapter of the first volume. It follows an artist named Wooly who's famed for his sculptures who's doing an installation at the store. The manga puts a focus on Wooly's late wife, how she admired small animals, and the design of the installation has all the animals at the same height, emphasizing equality. However, one of the guests, who's a big fan of Wooly's work, steps on a mice's tail and thus accidentally knocks over one of the art pieces. Even worse, it was the Smile-Don, Wooly late wife's favorite piece. There's a lot of emotion that goes into it, and especially the resolution at the end when a new piece is added to the exhibit. That may be spoilers for the ending, but that retelling doesn't contain 1/100th of the emotion that goes into this chapter. And I do find the art for this manga to be wonderful. And it's not hyper detailed, rather it's very stylized low detail work, and it really fits the nature of the story. It's like a fairy tale or maybe a children's book, setting up the tone where you shouldn't ask too many questions about how the world or the story works. I mean, the story is called The Concierge at the Hokkyoku department store, and that roughly translates into the concierge at the North Pole department store. You're really not supposed to ask why there's a department store in the North fucking Pole of all places, let alone why the animals are the ones to visit. You're supposed to accept the unrealities and look deeper at why the story is like this. Why does the manga focus on these extinct VIAs, from dodos to great moas? Why is this manga specifically set in a department store of all things? Although that pretty much is something the manga ends up spelling out for you at the end. Like I said before, this manga also has a movie that does have a translation and all that. I mean, for fuck's sake, you can watch the movie at Crunchyroll, but the manga also does have an official translation. It's split into 2 volumes that you can go ahead and buy off of Amazon, and of course, I'll leave a link to them in the description. The final manga we have to cover is called Co-meownication. New viewers may be asking themselves, is this guy really covering a whole ass manga just because he thinks the name pun is funny? And old viewers are going, that is the most in-character thing I've ever heard. That aside, this manga is also called Co-meownication, and while that isn't as good of a name, it is way easier to say, so I'm going to be going with that. This manga is weird because it's kind of episodic, but also kind of not. Like, each chapter follows a specific character, but we do pick back up with those characters every so often. Like, one chapter will follow Kyo, but the next might follow Shizuka, and so on and so forth. But then we'll also pick back up with Kyo and Shizuka later on. So I think it's best for me to actually lay out all the characters rather than talk about the plot. First, we have Mari and Nachi. Despite Nachi presenting himself very clean cut and composed, he is easily teased and messed with, especially when cat toys are involved. Then we have Chika and Shigure. The chapter I actually remember them from the most is chapter 6, when Chika gets very sick. Shigure has this whole internal battle about what he should do, since he does have to keep the fact that he's a cat a secret. It's not like a cat can just go to the hospital. Then there's Mari and Shizuka, with Shizuka being easily teased by the much older woman, almost entirely due to his crush on her. Then we have Kyo and Hitomi, where Kyo is the one that wears the pants and is easily fed up with Hitomi's antics. Or so he presents, because it seems like despite his maturity, he doesn't know how to vent his own feelings. There's even more characters like Mikazuki, Ai, Imiko and Yoda, and even Narumi and Suzumaru who get multiple parts dedicated to them. I'm gonna put a stop to the character talk here because goddamn that ate up so much time. The going theme of the manga and the reason for its name is that communication is the central idea. All these characters have some sort of conniption that complicates the way they express themselves to each other. I like the idea, and some of these chapters aren't bad. I think Narumi and Suzumaru's being the best in the whole manga. But at the same time, there are some chapters I just don't really like, but there is a benefit to the manga's odd structure. Because each chapter follows a different pair, it's totally possible to skip through the stuff you don't like. This is the manga that I'm most mixed about as a whole, and I do recommend you give this one a read, if only so I can see what other people think about it. And that's where I'm ending this video, because holy shit, this got way out of hand. This video is way longer than I thought it'd be. Do be sure to like, subscribe, Ko-fi and Patreon, you know how it goes. Now let's get to our Patreon shoutouts. We have special thanks to Makoides, Garen Lafayette, Churon, and Zora Chow, the Judun platoon upon the moon. And before you ask, no, I do not watch Doctor Who, I just know the phrase and I think it's fun to say. Thank you all for watching, do be sure to like and subscribe. As always, this is your host Fury, signing out.